It's been an eventful week at Yukon's Legislative Assembly. 2S LGBTQ plus policies, the Whitehorse emergency shelter, and the needs of volunteer firefighters were just a few of the things that came up during the first week of the spring sitting. CBC's Joseph Ho is covering the Yukon Legislature for us, and he's here to give us a recap of how the week went. Joseph, the Yukon NDP made a big splash early in the week. What happened?
Well, it started with question period on Monday. The NDP was asking the Liberal government about its commitment to supporting the 2S LGBTQ plus community in the Catholic school system. It cited a number of cases where the Department of Education's SOGI policy was violated. So that's sexual orientation and gender identity. And the thing about Catholic schools is that they are public schools, so they do have to follow the department's policies. So the media is scrumming with Leader Kate White. She was asked if Catholic schools should get public money. She says it's an excellent question, a little bit more prodding, and she says, yeah, let's defund Catholic education because department policy just keeps getting broken. So that story got a lot of attention.
Okay, and the government recently announced the nonprofit Connective will run the Whitehorse emergency shelter for another 3 months. What did the government have to say about that?
I think that is something a lot of people were interested in. So flashback to April last year, there was a coroner's inquest looking at the deaths of 4 women at the shelter. There have been deaths at the shelter since then, and that got the First Nation of Nacho done, among others, saying that Connective should not have its contract renewed. Well, we did hear from the Minister of Health and Social Services, Tracy Ann McPhee. She expressed sadness over the deaths. But she stood by Connective. She said the organization has committed to improvement. She called them experts in their field. She said they deserve our confidence. She said the short-term extension would allow services to continue and would include additional oversight of Connective's work managing the shelter.
A fire destroyed the community center in Tegish this week. How did that put a spotlight on the needs of volunteer firefighters?
It was a chance for the Yukon Party to raise concerns with the equipment that firefighters use when responding to emergencies like these. The Association of Yukon Fire Chiefs says 80% of its volunteers are using expired protective equipment. The Yukon Party's Brad Cathers put that directly to the government in question period. The government has said a lot of new gear is on its way, but in the meantime, safety officials are checking to see if some of the expired gear is still in working condition.
And of course, making sure those volunteer firefighters are equipped to do their job, so important. Politicians will also debate the budget later this session. Remind us where things stand with that.
Yes, it's a $2.3 billion budget for both operations and capital. Big increase in spending on healthcare, $88 million from the estimates last spring. In this budget, there's more money for police, big capital projects like upgrading the Whitehorse Airport and finishing the Nisutlan Bay Bridge. That is a bridge near Teslin. The budget also includes provisions to borrow up to $400 million. The government says it's in case they run into unexpected costs like healthcare expenses or environmental disasters.
Joseph, is there anything else you're going to be keeping an eye on during this session?
There have been a few bills that have been introduced. I would flag the Act to amend the Income Tax Act. This would create the $10,000 tax credit for fertility treatments. This was a commitment in the confidence and supply agreement between the governing Liberals and the NDP. One more thing I would flag for you, Leni, is keep an eye on Bill 46. This is the new Residential Tenancies Act. This legislation, also part of CASA, it would eliminate no-cause evictions. And over the last couple of years, issues like rent control and rent protections, very contentious in the Yukon.
Okay, thank you for your coverage of the Assembly, Joseph.
Thanks for having me.